highlights from the latest shows. Go like them, repost them. We really appreciate all the help that we can get. Now, getting into sports news this week, the biggest thing on the docket is tomorrow. WWE will host the 38th annual Royal Rumble match, which means we're officially on the road to WrestleMania. Now, I don't know if anything could be more exciting or turbulent than last year's road to WrestleMania. You had Cody Rhodes winning the Royal Rumble, then giving up his spot to turn it over to The Rock, and then the fans rebelling and The Rock turning heel, and it was just so many twists and turns that I don't know if that'll ever be topped in terms of greatest road to WrestleManias. But I'm really excited for what this year has to offer too. This Royal Rumble is shaping up to be the most exciting in years. I mean, there are so many big names in this match. For the men's rumble, there's already been 14 announced, and almost half of them are previous Royal Rumble winners. Six are John Cena, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Nakamura, and Rey Mysterio. And six are previous world champions, so the same six I just listed off, except switch out Nakamura for CM Punk. And I mean, Logan Paul is going to be in it. Gunther's probably going to be, he won't be in it, but there are going to be a lot of big names. Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, maybe. So just jam packed with cool matchups. We get to see John Cena and CM Punk face off in a ring, most likely for the first time in 12 years. We'll get to see Roman Reigns and CM Punk go at it at some point. Just, I cannot wait. And I think there are four favorites to win the match. I think you got John Cena, you got CM Punk, you got Roman Reigns. And this is a long shot, and I don't expect it, but if he shows up, he'll win. You've got The Rock. So a lot of people have been fantasy booking online The Rock coming back as a surprise number 31 entrant. So since he's on the board of directors, you have somebody like a John Cena or a CM Punk win the match, got through 30 other guys. They think, it's finally over with. The Rock's music hits. He says, as a member of the board, I'm putting myself in this match, throws out whatever. Rock wins, goes on to challenge Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. I would love that. But I just don't see it. Between what they had him do on Raw earlier this month to the fact that they just haven't teased anything with him lately. Now, they could always be going for a swerve, but I don't know if I see The Rock wrestling 2 years in a row. I hope I'm wrong. I hope The Rock comes back, and I hope he wins. But I don't think that he will. And if The Rock is going to be on this show, it'll be in the Royal Rumble. Some people maybe think he could show up in the Cody Rhodes Kevin Owens ladder match. That's not going to happen. So with The Rock being put to the side, if I'm booking the match, I'm giving it to John Cena. And the reason why is it seems like the current trajectory is to have CM Punk versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And if you were going to do that match, it wouldn't be a title match. So there's no point in having one of them win the Royal Rumble. Now, Raw this Monday made me second guess if that's the plan for CM Punk and Roman at WrestleMania, because CM Punk and Cody Rhodes had a great promo segment. So maybe plans have changed a bit and they'll have CM Punk win the Royal Rumble and challenge Cody Rhodes. But if they do that, then I'm not sure where that leaves Roman, because he has to be done with the Bloodline storyline at this point. And it doesn't feel like he's going to be wrestling The Rock. So if he isn't wrestling CM Punk, then I don't know what he'll be doing. I mean, maybe Jacob Fatu, but I feel like that's a match I would want to hold off on. Jacob just got a really big win against Braun Strowman on Saturday night's main event, which is great, but I feel like they would want to build him up even longer, let him get to be a real main event level star before they start putting him in main events at WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. So to me, John Cena winning and then challenging Cody seems like the most straightforward story. And that match build up would be epic, since there's so much history to build off there with John Cena being the top dog, and always whooping up on Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase when they were Randy Orton's lackeys and Legacy, and how Cody Rhodes learned from that and tried to emulate John Cena now that he's the top dog. But John Cena's back and wants to reclaim his throne to win the record-breaking 17th title. And there's just a lot of layers there that I would love to see culminate in a WrestleMania main event. And we haven't seen John Cena main event WrestleMania since 2013. So he's 12 years due for one. His last WrestleMania, he should get the big send-off in the marquee match. Now, that being said, for selfish reasons, I don't want John Cena to win, because if Cena wins, that would have him tie Stone Cold for the most Royal Rumbles ever won. So Cena has won in 2008 and 2013. Stone Cold has the record with 3 wins. He won in 97, 98, and 2001. And that's a record I like Stone Cold having. He's the best brawler. The Royal Rumble was his signature match. I don't know. I would like to see him keep the record. Now, if Cena doesn't win, it'll be because he got eliminated by Logan Paul, and that's who he ends up wrestling at WrestleMania. That's an idea that's been kicked around some too for Cena, and that's an interesting match that would get a lot of mainstream press, but I feel like it would be better to let Cena win the world title at WrestleMania and then wrestle Logan Paul for the WWE title at Money in the Bank or one of the Saudi shows. And if Cena's not going to win, then it's going to be Punk. And if Punk does win, I'm interested to see how the WrestleMania card ends up looking. Cody is wrestling Kevin Owens in a ladder match for the WWE title, and it should be a good match, but Cody's definitely going to win. The only question is the how, because they've been planting the seeds that Sami Zayn is going to get involved, and the role that Sami plays here is frankly interesting. So Owens has been hating Cody Rhodes' guts since he teamed up with the Bloodline months ago. And it's been a hole in that story for a while that Kevin Owens is over here going after people that teamed up with the Bloodline, all the while his best friend Sami Zayn is back in the good graces of the Bloodline and teaming up with them. And so 2 weeks ago on Raw, Kevin Owens finally confronts Sami Zayn about it. And it was less of a confrontation and more Kevin Owens buttering up Sami Zayn, trying to get him to help Kevin Owens beat Cody Rhodes at the Royal Rumble. That way, Sami can win the Rumble and they can wrestle each other for a world title at WrestleMania. And Sami kind of blew that off, didn't say anything. Well, then on Raw this last week, Sami accidentally kicked Cody in the face, which would be an interesting ripple if they hadn't just done that same story like 3 months ago when they had Sami come out at a Saudi show and try to help Roman, and end up Sami kicked him in the face, and people were like, oh my gosh, Sami's going after Roman. He did that on purpose, and it was a whole ordeal, but it was clearly an accident. And so they're going to use that kick in the face to sow doubt about whether or not Sami will turn heel and help KO beat Cody. But I don't think it'll happen. And I think one of two things will happen. Either one, Sami will come out and stop KO from cheating somehow, or end up costing him the match, or he just doesn't come out at all. And I would rather the second part happen. I don't want the match to get too dusty towards the end, and it'd be good to have Cody win on his own merits, but Sami not coming out at all, that making Kevin Owens mad. Kevin Owens comes out and either eliminates Sami in the Rumble, even though KO is not an entrant, or he jumps him before Sami could even get to the match. I think that's how you go from there. Now, Randy Orton is a big question mark on tomorrow's show because it's about time for him to come back, and I would expect that he comes back tomorrow night because surely he'll be on the WrestleMania card, and the road to WrestleMania is starting, so it's about time we get Randy Orton back. But I'm not sure if he'll show up in the ladder match or in the Rumble. Now, if Sami's not going to interfere in the match, Randy Orton could easily come out and RKO Kevin Owens because Kevin Owens is in kayfabe the reason Orton's been out all this time. Personally, I would rather Randy be in the Rumble because that would be a cool another big name to add in there, and you could also have Randy and Cena face off for the first time in years as well, and just add to the mix of main event level superstars that are already chock full in this match. Now on the women's rumble, I have no idea who's winning that one, and I think DIY will beat the Motor City Machine Guns for the tag titles. Now I'm really looking forward to the tag team match being 2 out of 3 falls. I love a good 2 out of 3 falls match, though I would love to see a 2 out of 3 falls match with the same person just won 2 falls in a row. It does kind of, diminish your suspension of disbelief that every single time that match stipulation happens, it goes to the third fall. But that's neither here nor there. In other big WWE news, Triple H got announced yesterday as the first inductee of this year's Hall of Fame class. He's a 9-time WWE champ, 5-time World Heavyweight champ, 5-time Intercontinental champion, 3-time Tag champion, a 2-time Royal Rumble winner, the 1997 King of the Ring, a Triple Crown, and a Grand Slam champion. And that's not even mentioning all the work he's done behind the scenes. In a world where Drew Carey is in the WWE Hall of Fame, Triple H is certainly a more than deserving candidate. And it's honestly crazy to think it's taken him this long to get a solo induction. He went in as a member of DX in 2019, but he's been retired from full-time wrestling since 2012 and fully retired for 3 years now. So I don't know what the hang-up has been, but it looks like Nick Khan went over his head and decided to put Hunter in. And I think it's great now that, they really tooted the horn last year that we're in the Paul Levesque era. WWE's business is booming in large part because of Triple H. So it's great to see him that he's going to get his flowers. And given his health scare that he had a couple years back, it really, makes you appreciate the fact that Triple H will be here to go into the Hall of Fame. Knock on wood, because you never know what could happen in 2 months. But barring a unforeseen tragedy, Triple H will get to be there to give his own Hall of Fame speech. And in a world where a lot of people don't, I've already talked in the past about Vader not getting to be there for his own. In the basketball world, Kobe didn't get to be there for his own, and that's certainly something nobody would have anticipated. It's good to see Triple H going in. Now, that begs the question, who's going to induct Triple H into the Hall of Fame? And I'll throw out 5 names, maybe 6 names, but ultimately I think it comes down to 2 real candidates for it. Now, I'll do the 6 first. I think any of the above of The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Stephanie McMahon, Mick Foley, Randy Orton, or The Undertaker. I don't think you could go wrong with either of those options. But if it were up to me, which it's not, I would pick The Rock. I think The Rock and Triple H's careers are intertwined in a way that few superstars in any sport ever are. In basketball, you've got Wilt and Bill Russell. You've got Bird and Magic. In baseball, you got Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. In wrestling, you've got Triple H and The Rock. They came up in the mid-card together. They moved up to the main event together. Now they're both executives in the company. They've just always been like this and that in the wrestling world. Obviously, outside of wrestling, The Rock has left Triple H in a different atmosphere. But I think The Rock would be more than willing to do it if his schedule would allow it. And that's the ultimate question mark there, is if his schedule would allow it. And that could factor into whether or not we get to see The Rock at WrestleMania. I mean, if he's going to be wrestling, he'll be there. He can do it. And if he's not wrestling, but he's going to induct Triple H, then he'll be there the day before. Why not have him involved in WrestleMania? But we'll see. I think it should be The Rock. It'll probably be Shawn Michaels. And that's great, too. I mean, DX, Shawn Michaels helped Triple H get his start in the main event, too. But I think The Rock would be the one I would want to see induct Triple H. And Mick Foley, just to, shout him out. If 3 people can be said, I think, to have helped make Triple H a star in the ring. and that's Mick Foley, The Rock, and Shawn Michaels. And Mick Foley, I think, did more to cement Triple H as a legit star in terms of his in-ring skill. Him and The Rock were a great rivalry, but as far as matches go, Mick Foley helped Triple H take, no pun intended, his game to another level. I mean, you had the 1997 Falls Count Anywhere match with him and Cactus Jack. You had the no holds barred or the street fight in 2000 at the Royal Rumble, and the Hell in a Cell match a year later. So Mick Foley really helped Triple H, be that bad mamma jamma that he was in 2000. And last year, WWE inducted 6 people into the Hall of Fame. So now that Triple H has been announced, we're getting into the Hall of Fame season. I'm not going to make predictions on who they'll pick, but I'll give you what 5 other wrestlers I would put in if I were them. And because they always do it this way, I'll do 2 more male wrestlers, a woman wrestler, a tag team, and a celebrity. Now, for my male wrestlers, I'm going with Lex Luger and Psycho Sid. Now, Lex Luger was a stud back in the NWA, WCW, WWE, or F at the time. The total package, he really was. He had great matches with Ric Flair. He came into WWE. He feuded with, Bret Hart, and that's pretty much it. Yokozuna, I guess. His WWE run was kind of a flop, but went back to WCW, did great things, wrestling Hogan and Goldberg and Bret Hart and all that good stuff. Was just a legit main event talent for almost a 15-year stretch. But he wasn't in on good terms with WWE for a long time. They pretty much buried him and accused him of murder on their Confidential show in 2003. But lately, in the last 2 or 3 years, he's been back around. He's made some online appearances on their YouTube channel. He's been having his fair share of health issues lately. I don't think he can walk anymore. So I think he would give a very powerful, moving speech. He seems like he's in a good spot in his life. And so I would love it if they would give him the chance to go out there and go in the Hall of Fame. Because, I mean, he really was an all-time great talent back in the 90s. I mean, him and the Four Horsemen, that was a heck of a rivalry in the late 80s. He went to WWE. He wasn't Hulk Hogan. And if not being Hulk Hogan is the biggest knock somebody can have against you in terms of wrestling, then that's, you know what? Like, you're in a very big company not being Hulk Hogan. And, everybody always points to the fact that he was supposed to be the champion against Yokozuna. They decided to try to hold off to crown him until WrestleMania. The whole Lex Express thing, he died out. And Bret Hart ended up taking that role instead. But he still had a successful career. And the fact that he wasn't able to become the face of the company in WWE, that's not something I think that should stand in the way when he's a 2-time WCW World Champion, 5-time U.S. Champion, on top of a lot of other things. So that's one name I think should be in there. The other, Psycho Sid, he just passed away this last year. He should have been in years ago too, and there's no need in waiting around any longer. He was a 2-time WWE champion, had a great match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 13. A lot of people overlooked that match. I've always really enjoyed it. And he had a good run in WCW and up until he broke his ankle in that awful accident he had on Nitro. But, I mean, him and Goldberg had some good matches, him and Bret Hart. That, 2000 WCW run was really a career renaissance that he had that got cut short. And as far as who should induct them, I think Lex should get inducted by Ric Flair, who honestly is another shout out to somebody who could induct Triple H. And I think Sid should be inducted by Shawn Michaels. Now, it would be weird having Shawn Michaels induct someone on this show who isn't Triple H, but considering that Sid came back to the WWF as Shawn's bodyguard, and then him and Shawn had a feud over the WWF title in late 96, which is where Sid won his first championship when he beat Shawn at Survivor Series that year, I think it will be fitting. And then if you want to have, Say you have Ric Flair induct Luger and Shawn induct Sid and The Rock induct Triple H, and they all come out at the end and say nice things about Triple H, you could easily do that. Now, for the female inductee, this is going to be a hot take to some people, but I think it should be Kelly Kelly. She was a face of the Divas division for a good, at least 4-year stretch when I first started watching. Everybody loved Kelly Kelly. She was the Divas champion, and that's pretty much it. But that counts for something. Tag team inductee should be Demolition. They were the longest reigning tag team champions in WWE history for years until WWE had New Day break that record because they got mad at Demolition for being a part of a concussion lawsuit against them. But that's been over a decade ago. Time to move on. Demolition, they're an all-time great tag team that because of them being on the outs of WWE, they don't get promoted enough in the all-time lists and the video packages and things like that. And whenever I would sit and watch YouTube, watching up or growing up as a kid, I always loved watching Demolition come out. One, because they had a banger theme song, and two, I just loved the face paint, the costumes. It was awesome. They always get criticized as being Road Warrior knockoffs, but they made a heck of a name for themselves independent of any Road Warriors comparisons, and I think their career stands on its own. So it's more than past time for Demolition to be in the Hall of Fame too. And for the celebrity induction, I think it should be Cyndi Lauper. She was an integral part of the rock and wrestling era. Her putting Lou Albano in the Girl Just Want to Have Fun music video arguably started the rock and wrestling era. Then, she got involved with Wendy Richter. She helped promote WrestleMania 1. Her getting whacked upside the head by Roddy Piper with the platinum record has got to be one of the biggest heel moves in WWE history and got Roddy Piper insane levels of heat that heels today only wish they could have. And she was just huge in kickstarting that golden age of 80s WWF. And is one of the few celebrities who actually deserves a Hall of Fame spot. So that's pretty much what I've got in terms of WWE. In other sports news, Bronny James is once again at the top of the NBA world, or the bottom, depending on your perspective. He's at the top of the headlines, at least, just not for good reason. He's played 14 games this season, and for the most part, he's been relegated to 5 minutes or less in garbage time, playing meaningless minutes. Until the other day, when, for whatever reason, LeBron got a wild hair and had J.J. Redick put Bronny in for 15 and a half minutes in a game, and the Lakers lost by 14, and Bronny went 0 for 5 with 3 missed threes. Now, he bounced back last night and had the best game of his career. He scored a career-high 5 points on 1 for 6 shooting, and he played 12 minutes. And, it was embarrassing. He got MVP chants thrown his way, very sarcastic of the DC audience to do. And everybody in the sports media and their mother is going on television blaming LeBron, saying that he's being bad for putting his kid out in this situation. And as much as everybody's, going after LeBron for this, there's somebody else who deserves more blame in my book, and that's Bronny. Everyone is talking about how LeBron is doing wrong by his kid for putting him out there for 15 minutes to get exposed, like Bronny is some 5-year-old LeBron's throwing in the deep end. Bronny's 20 years old, and last I checked, that makes him a grown man. Quit, Dad, you're embarrassing me, is a sentence that most people figured out how to say by the time they hit the first grade. And at this point, it's on Bronny to say, look, Dad, I'm not ready for this. I've been doing good in the G League. Let me stay down there and work on making a name for myself. Instead of getting flamed by the news, targeted by opposing players, mocked by the crowd, and taking minutes from players who are better than me. That's a simple conversation that could take 3 minutes max, and it's on Bronny to have that conversation. And he's been doing good in the G League. He's averaging 16.5 points a game. He scored 31 not too long ago. It seems like he's actually developing as a player. And if Bronny actually does want to have a future in the NBA after his dad retires, he needs to develop as much as possible. And having him thrown out in the deep end, getting chewed out and spit up for lunch, isn't the way to do it. LeBron said he always dreamed of playing with his son, and he got to do that on opening day. That should have been the end of this Bronny farce, and he should have gone back down to the G League to actually work on his game. Now, Bronny, I think, deserves the most blame for this because, like I said, he's 20 years old. He can stand up for himself at this point. But I've got to throw some blame JJ Redick's way too. Bronny is 20. And yeah, he's a grown man legally. A lot of people, like, yeah, 20-year-olds, they're young, they're impressionable, they might feel overwhelmed, whatever. Like, I get it. Don't agree, but I understand that sentiment. Well, JJ Redick doesn't have that excuse. JJ Redick is 40 years old. He needs to man up and be the coach of this team and not just LeBron's puppet. Now, he went out and he said that he thought it was smart to play Bronny because it was a back-to-back and Bronny could be a spark plug off the bench. And he admitted he made a mistake. Anybody could have told you that's what was going to happen. I mean, Bronny hasn't played more than 5.5 minutes a game the entire season, and you put him out there for 15.5 minutes in a relatively competitive game. There's a reason he hasn't been playing more than 5.5 minutes. There's a reason that a lot of people were angry he got drafted at all. He's not ready. And if you're being objective as a coach and you're giving minutes to the best players on the team, which is what a good coach should do, there's no way he even believes the garbage that he's saying. But LeBron wants Bronny to play. JJ knows he has to do what LeBron says. And so he has to come up with some ex post facto way to justify giving Bronny minutes that should go to somebody else. And the only reason I'm not getting on LeBron for this is because I don't think LeBron's lived in the real world since he entered the NBA. So I don't blame him for believing that he can have his cake and eat it too with his Bronny stuff and force feed his son into being an NBA superstar. I mean, the dude was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in high school. He's been called the chosen one since the time he could drive. He went to the NBA, made it happen. He's thought he's the GOAT now for the last 10 years at least. I mean, everything has gone his way just about since he entered the NBA. So for him to think that he can make fetch happen and get his son drafted and find a way to make that become a success too, like, honestly, the dude's been hitting nothing but net for the last 20 years. I don't blame him for that. But when you're that detached from reality, it's on the people around you to keep you level and say, hey, LeBron, Bronny's not ready. Hey, Dad, I'm not ready. So that's how I feel about that. I mean, the longer this goes on, the more of a bad taste it's going to leave in people's mouths, and the more it's going to, set people against Bronny, which is a shame. Now, the last news item here I'm going to get into is that Jimmy Butler got suspended for the third time this week for walking out of practice. And the team said this will last at least 6 games and get them through the trade deadline without having to worry about Jimmy Butler making more news. And, I said that I'm about ready for the Bronny farce to be over with. This is just beyond ridiculous at this point. They should have just suspended him indefinitely the first time he had this infraction because Jimmy Butler has made it abundantly clear that he has no interest in playing for the Heat. So why even bother inviting him to practice and have him wasting time that could be dedicated to giving minutes to people that are actually going to be playing for your team in 3 months? Like, I really don't understand the logic there. Get rid of him. Or at the very least, pay him to sit at home. It's embarrassing for the NBA that the players are the ones running the league like this. I mean, he's suspended indefinitely without pay for 6 games. At the end of the day, for somebody who's about to sign probably a max mega million contract, that's a drop in the bucket. So I like to think that maybe Pat Riley could stare down Jimmy Butler and somebody wouldn't get their way when they throw a temper tantrum like this. But I mean, 3 suspensions in a week, like just get rid of him. And honestly, I know there are a lot of teams out there that like the Suns and the Warriors that are seemingly in the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes. Why would you want a player like that? Somebody who, the second he mentally checks out, starts wreaking havoc in your locker room. That's just not behavior, I think, that should be rewarded with a match contract, which is the only reason he's not re signing with Miami in the first place, is because Pat Riley made an honest assessment of Jimmy Butler's skill level and age and said, "You're not worth a match contract. Your best years are most likely behind you, and you've taken us to 2 NBA finals, which we appreciate, but we're not going to give you a royalty, lifetime achievement contract like you're Kobe or somebody. You've been with the Heat for about 6 years. Whoop-de-doo. Take what are you going to get, like, probably like 5 million less than you otherwise would have on like 40 million instead of 45. Okay, so it's just annoying, and stuff like this is why the NBA ratings are tanking, because nobody enjoys watching and keeping up with stuff like that. So that's the Jimmy Butler saga. I hope that over this All-Star break we can get rid of this story. And on the note of the All-Star game, that will be a farce, I'm sure, as well. And with that, happy note, I will see y'all next time, and I cannot wait to get into what happened on the Royal Rumble show and who's going to win the Super Bowl, but we'll see that next week.